Hi everyone, welcome back to Penguin Powered Gaming. Today I just wanted to cover a video of basically the upscaling technologies that some of the newer games are using, as well as the graphic cards. On the NVIDIA side, you have DLSS, and then on which is proprietary, and then on the AMD side, you have an open source FSR. FSR stands for Fidelity FX Super Resolution. With this being primarily a Linux gaming channel, I kind of lean towards that, and also I find that I find a little more compatibility with Linux as well. But let's just kind of talk about this and go over it. And I'm going to use screenshots in Civilization 7 as examples. So stick with the video. Let me just kind of cover over some of the different versions and how they're different. And then we'll kind of go into detail in some of the screenshots, and you can kind of visually compare and see for yourself. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you haven't dropped subscribe, please do so. It really helps the channel. I'm a small channel, and it helps me out immensely. So let's get into it. So if you go to the AMD FSR Technologies website and you scroll down, it kind of talks about FSR, but if you go to the complete list of games for FSR, it stands for Fidelity FX Super Resolution. And we want to start at 1. And this probably isn't all of the games, but it's quite a bit. Quick spoiler alert, FSR 1 is supported in Civilization 7, as are mini games, but it's actually in the FSR 3 because that's the maximum supported version. Okay, so FSR 1.0 was created in 2021. It uses spatial upscaling. And on most modern GPUs, it generally works. It can use current frames essentially to take your current resolution, and it renders it in a much lower resolution, and it does so with a scaling factor, right? So the scaling factors that AMD uses are essentially ultra quality, balanced performance, and ultra performance. Those being 1.3, 1.5, 1.7, 2.0, and 3.0. And so essentially when you render at ultra quality, you're getting less performance, but you're getting more visual fidelity. As you go down that list and you render for more towards performance, you're getting a lot more performance with the lack of visual fidelity, right? So that means that you're rendering your image at a higher resolution when you're going ultra in quality than you are when you go performance or ultra performance. And that scaling factor comes into play. Here is an example. I play the game, like I play Civilization 7 on an ultra widescreen. And so my resolution is very high. It's 3440 by 1440, which is essentially like 4K. It's not fully 4K, but it's kind of like half of 4K. At 1.3 on ultra settings, FSR actually renders the resolution at 2646 by 1108, which is a 1.3 scale, and then it upscales it after that. And so that's kind of where you can get, because it's rendering at a much lower resolution, that's where you get your big FPS increases. If you use another example would be a full 4K display resolution, which is 3840 by 2160. If you use ultra performance and that's a 3.0 scaling factor, it actually renders it at 720p, so 1280 by 720, and then it upscales it up to 4K. So you're going to get massive performance. You're going to get a lot of frames per second, but the visual fidelity is going to suffer a little bit, or actually quite a bit at 720p, upscaling to 4K. So in 2022, They created FSR 2.0, and then I think there's a couple iterations of that. So in that version, instead of the current frame, it's actually using the current and the previous frame, and they introduced motion vectors. One of the biggest benefits of 2.0 was in 1.0 you had like kind of a lot of shimmering, and then that was severely reduced in 2.0. And then in FSR 3 in 2023 and 2024, they introduced FSR 3, which was able to do frame gen. So now you can actually generate. I know a lot of people have been calling this fake frames because they kind of are. They're frames that are. It's essentially using an AI algorithm to look at the previous frame, to look at the latest frame, and then it renders an image or a pixel in between, or pixels in between the actual frames. And then the latest, which is 4.0 and or 4.1, was released in 2025, and that's really on the latest and greatest cards. That actually uses, like, instead of using an algorithm, like for AI frame gen rendering, it's actually using machine learning. And so it's the AI upscaling technology with FSR is slowly getting better and better and better and better. And so in Civilization 3, and this is where I want to and I just kind of wanted to show you this on the website if you wanted to look at this on the game supported. We've been specifically playing Sid Meier's Civilization 7, and I think that's on this list. I was looking, and then we'll jump into the screenshots. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So this Sid Meier's Civilization 7 is officially supported on FSR 3.1, I believe. All right, so let's take a look at some example screenshots that I actually tested. So let's start out with MSAA, which is multi-sample anti-aliasing, and FSR1 with multi-sample aliasing or anti-aliasing. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice in this, let's kind of zoom in one more. All right, the first thing you notice is FSR1, they say that it produces a lot of shimmering. I didn't necessarily see shimmering, but look at the tree shadows. You can see the tree shadows. They don't really look like shadows anymore. Now they're very defined lines, like straight edged lines. And then if you look at the tree shadows using multi-sample anti-aliasing, which is not doing any kind of upscaling, that's just pure horsepower, rendering the frame at the desired resolution. It's not doing any type of like a lower resolution and then upscaling it. So you can see the shadow kind of looks more like a shadow. It's kind of fuzzy. And so that's one big difference there. And I noticed that really consistently. Like if you look over at this silk and you zoom in and look at the tree shadows here, and then if I zoom over, you can see the tree shadows. They're using the FSR 1. It's very straight lines, whereas they actually, I think I need to zoom in one more. Did I zoom in one? Yeah. Yeah, if you look at this, the difference is very clear. You know, you may like those straight edge lines, but it just doesn't look natural to me. You can play either one. You're going to get, if you play on FSR 1 plus multi-sample anti-aliasing, you're going to get better performance than MSA or multi-sample anti-aliasing just by itself for sure. So I found that very, very interesting. Now, also, I did notice that the native Linux client in Civilization 7 does not have FSR 3, whereas the Proton version, for the Windows version essentially, does have FSR3. So I'm hoping we'll get FSR3 in the Linux launcher options or the Linux version soon, because I definitely want to get that corrected. So that's a wish listed option because we're going to compare FSR3. All right, so I said that. Well, before we compare, there's one other thing. Let's see, this wagon. This is a great example, actually. Let's zoom really far in. Okay, let's go over to this wagon, and we'll go really far in. Let's even go one more. Okay, so if you look at this wagon, you look at the wagon wheels. When you're using the upscaler, like this is a huge difference. This wagon wheel doesn't exist. I mean, the upscaler lost so much detail in the upscaling that it just, and this wagon wheel parts of the wheel just doesn't exist. You lost a lot. You lost pixels. There's a huge difference here than just using raw horsepower. So if you care about just visual fidelity and you have the horsepower, you're not gaining anything by using FSR1. As far as visual fidelity, you'll gain some performance through frames per second, but you lose quite a bit on this. Now, so I installed the Proton, essentially running it with Proton using the Windows version because I wanted to test this also using FSR3. Now, FSR3 is a big leap compared to FSR1. Like, it's huge. So now we're using actual AI algorithms. And if you look on the trees, shadows, you no longer see straight edge lines. Now you're actually seeing it kind of looks like shadows, right? And then if you look over at the silk, again, it looks like shadows. It looks good. Now you also, starting in FSR 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0, you're getting anti-aliasing as well as upscaling. There's no anti-aliasing in FSR1. So usually if you use FSR1, you're going to use some type of anti-aliasing with it. But here, you're not only getting anti-aliasing, but you're getting a great upscaled image. So because this actually looks very similar to just the not rendering or not upscaling whatsoever. And you're also, with FSR3, you get a pretty massive FPS boost. So let's go over to this wagon and zoom in and just kind of compare. There are differences. I'm not necessarily a fan of one over the other. I generally use MSAA because even with a high resolution, I have a 9070 XT, which can pretty much render at the resolution desired. However, if I had the option, look at these screenshots. These, I mean, FSR3 looks really, really good. There is some loss, but not nearly like FSR1 was. Like, you can actually, the wheels maintain the detail, they maintain the light on top of the wheels. It very little detail from what I can see is actually lost. So, with that being said, FSR3 I think is the way I would go if I have the option. Not only are you getting a great image quality, but you're getting a pretty massive performance boost as well. So I just kind of wanted to make a video real quick and kind of cover these and explain the differences. And I hope this video helped you guys as you go into the graphic options and you're deciding which one to choose, not only for Civilization 3, but maybe this video, or not Civilization 3, but Civilization 7, but maybe it helps you with other games as well. Because the underlying technology with FSR and anti-aliasing and things like that with upscaling, it's pretty much the same across all of the games. Once you start using like FSR 3 compared to FSR 1, you're going to see a better image quality. You're going to see better anti-aliasing, less shimmer, things like that, and you're going to get a higher FPS. So if this helped you out, please drop a like in the on the video, and maybe drop a comment. And I hope to see you guys again soon. All right, happy gaming. Take care.